The Prime Minister has fought against suggestions Australia should increase defence spending. Let's bring in our political editor, Andrew Clennell. So, Andrew, what's he had to say on this today?
Well, there was speculation, Ash, that Anthony Albanese would be invited to the White House prior to the G7 summit in Canada, which is due in about a week and a half's time. Now, there's been no such invite. In fact, all America has done is seek to stir the government up in the last 3 or 4 days. And Anthony Albanese appears to be hitting back at that. So there are two examples of it. The first is the new steel tariff announced at a rally in Pennsylvania with no warning to the Australian government by Donald Trump, up from 25% to 50%, the tariff. And then Pete Hegseth to Richard Marles in a one-on-one at the Shangri-La Dialogue in Singapore said that Australia should up its defence spend from the 2.33 that's on the trajectory it's on to 3.5, up from the previous American demand of 3% of GDP. Pete Hegseth then released that in a statement when Richard Marles had just said, look, we're looking to work with them on defence spending. So it really does set the scene for a very interesting bilateral meeting, which we're all expecting, between Donald Trump and Anthony Albanese in Canada. And Anthony Albanese is making clear to a domestic audience he doesn't get his riding orders from Donald Trump.
The UK says it will spend 3% of GDP on defence by 2030.
Good on them.
Shouldn't Australia be acting in line with their allies?
What, with the UK? The UK's in a different place from Australia.
Keir Starmer's announced yesterday that
he's a good fella, Keir Starmer.
He said the UK is going to build 12 new submarines.
Should we build 12?
12 new attack submarines? Where are ours?
We determine our defence policy here. We're a sovereign nation that need to have pride in our sovereignty and in our capacity to make decisions in our national interest.
Yeah, it certainly makes for some interesting conversations down the track, Andrew. Also, as we've been reporting, the Indigenous Greens Senator Dorinda Cox, she's defected to Labor. It comes, of course, after the government controversially extended the North West Shelf gas project.
Yeah, the timing, very interesting, isn't it? And it comes about a week and a half after she lost a ballot for deputy leader against Maureen Faruqi for the Greens, 9 votes to 3. So the Greens certainly think that is one of the motivations here for Dorinda Cox, who has friends in the WA Labor Party. And as I reported last night, Ash, had discussions with the Prime Minister's office concerning this move. Also been speculated she looked at leaving the Greens to sit as an independent, but decided that Labor was the better course of action. Well, one Green source said to me, how does this look? An Indigenous Greens senator moving over to Labor on the very week that they approved the North West Shelf project, which pushes up emissions and is said to threaten Indigenous rock art. Well, here was the senator announcing her decision and trying to dodge the North West Shelf question last evening, and the Prime Minister talking up the move today.
Well, I think that the provisional approval done by Minister Watt, I believe, is still in train, and it wouldn't be suitable for me to have public commentary during that stage.
I mean, you were quite adamant when you were at the Greens, though, that there was no way that project should go ahead. So how do you get behind a government that's now putting forward a path for that to go ahead?
Well, again, it wouldn't be for me to make public commentary, particularly during the provisional approval stage. My understanding is that Woodside do need to come back to Minister Watt.
Have you listening to traditional owners who say ancient rock art and Moorooga will be stripped from them with the extension of this approval?
Well, again, I would need to look at the provisional approval that's been made by Minister Watt. I think we need to be clear about that before I can actually get into a policy debate about it.
Dorinda Cox understands that being a member of the Labor Party means that she will support positions that are made by the Labor Party. But I make this point as well. North West Shelf has had an interim decision. There'll be comments required over the next couple of weeks on that by interested parties.
And Ash, I'm told Penny Wong has been heckled in Perth while she's there for that cabinet meeting over the North West Shelf. An organisation called Disrupt Burrup has put the vision up on Instagram in the last few minutes. We'll get that up for you as soon as we can.
All right, we'll see that shortly. But Andrew, before you go, I also see the government's being accused of sneakiness in the handling of its controversial super tax, in particular over how it could affect the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese.
Well, we finally had an admission on Sunday Agenda on the weekend, Ash, from Amanda Rishworth, the new Employment and Workplace Relations Minister, that Anthony Albanese and federal politicians on the old pension scheme won't have to pay this super tax on funds of more than $3 million until they retire. And that puts them in a different category to ordinary Australians who, controversially, we know under this legislation will be paying tax on money they don't have yet. They haven't cashed it out, if you like. They haven't received it. It's just the value of their super funds that's determined. Well, that won't happen with politicians. They'll only get the tax when they retire because they're on defined benefit schemes, as will ex-military, as will ex-public servants. This is Amanda Rishworth admitting it on Sunday.
The majority of federal politicians, like myself, have industry super funds.
I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about Anthony Albanese and people in his position.
What we have done, as been past practice, is actually apply commensurate provisions and treatment to achieve equivalent tax outcomes.
So they'll get taxed straight away.
No,
is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying it is been. No, what I'm saying is that the same provisions that have been used to treat defined benefit schemes in the past under the coalition and under previous governments have been applied.
Would someone like the Prime Minister, would they be required to pay this later? It may be so-called commensurate, or would they, like anyone else with $3 million in a super fund, have to start paying it straight away? It's really a yes or no question. Later or straight away?
Well, they are treated differently. There is interest payable that is calculated in a defined benefit scheme. It is the same way that other superannuation tax changes and other changes have been applied to the defined benefit scheme.
All right, Ash, get the feeling we haven't been told the whole truth all the way along here? I certainly do. And we can see it here on May 14. Our reporter, Harry Clark, up here in Brisbane, was asking the Treasurer, Jim Chalmers, about it. Now, have a listen to this first answer where he kind of slips past the question, the Treasurer, and says defined benefits will be treated the same way the Coalition treated them, but doesn't directly answer the question.
Treasurer, can you please clarify how the $3 million super tax will apply to defined pension super? Will it apply to judges and politicians?
Well, we've made it clear it applies the same way that the Coalition's changes did. And we did a lot of consultation to make sure that defined benefit was appropriately represented.
It was the Sunday after that Sky News revealed that former state officials under their old scheme weren't going to be taxed at all because they were constitutionally protected. Well,
so will the likes of Peter Dutton and Anthony Albanese, who both entered Parliament before 2004, be subject to these super tax increases?
Yes, and we've made that clear. Yeah, you read from time to time on social media that somehow politicians on the old scheme before 2004 have somehow been exempted. That's not the case. But politicians on defined benefit will be impacted if they've got very substantial balances by the changes we're proposing.
Well, that's on May 14 as well. And what it shows is Jim Chalmers point blank telling our cameras that federal politicians like Anthony Albanese and Peter Dutton won't be treated differently. We now know, Ash, they will be treated differently. So why couldn't he have just said that? He must have known that on May 14. If he didn't know that, why didn't he know that?
Yeah, it's a bit messy. Andrew Clennell, appreciate the update. Thank you for your analysis.